everyone, this is Angela and welcome to my channel, Angie the ENTJ. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so you'll know whenever I upload any new content. So today's video is part 3 of the series, You Can't Do Me Wrong for Your Rights. You don't get your rights by doing me wrong, partner. So yeah. Okay, and in this video, we're going to briefly dive into the impact of having biological males identifying as women on our statistics. You see, in part 1, we dived in and talked about how the trans people need their own facilities in order to have service for their own unique needs, the way that differently able-bodied people have already done for themselves. They just need to put in the work, okay, like everybody else has done, as opposed to doing the equivalent of, using this as an example respectfully, being a blind person who expects everyone else to wear blindfolds and living in a simulation of their own handicap, even though those people are not blind. And I say that respectfully. So it's not fair to not have facilities for people that need it, like people who are blind, people who are deaf, or people who have different abilities. But likewise, it's not fair to have able-bodied people pretending to be something that they're not, or pretending that they have a handicap when they don't, just so that everybody can fit into the same box, so to speak. In the second video, I covered how gender ideology in school turns out to be a way to poach children psychologically into different communities without the community that's gaining them having to pay the price of caring for them, raising them, birthing them, creating them, and so on and so forth. In other words, while they use school time as a way to redirect children into becoming trans when they may actually not be trans, and the consequences of it is paid for by the parents and the birth community at large. So in today's video, part 3, this is where we're going to go into the numerical impact of having males identifying as females. You see, the common tactic of those who are proponents or supporters, particularly of trans women playing in women's sports and using women's facilities, is to counter the discussion with the, old exception to the rule. This is their favorite rebuttal, okay? This is their go-to. This is their tactic. So they tend to use the women who have had hysterectomies. When you say, well, you don't have a womb, you've never had a period, you'll never have a baby, and things like that. So they'll say, well, there are women who have had hysterectomies, or even girls that were born without uteruses, as a way to counter that argument and to make it appear, or to try to force their perspective, that because they had a surgery, for those that actually have the surgery, because many of them don't, okay, that because they're wearing women's attire and makeup and nail polish and wigs and so on and so forth, that they are equally as much of a woman biologically as a woman who went through girlhood, a woman who, when she was born out of her mother's womb, the doctors and the nurses looked and said, it's a girl. A woman who had to figure out at a very young age that she could not sit with her legs open, that she couldn't climb up things when she was wearing a dress, okay? A woman who, as a girl, more often than not, had to be in the house helping her mother with chores, while if she had brothers, they got to stay outside and play. That they are equal to somebody like me with 2 X chromosomes. And they will argue this point to the moon. However, as for those of you who've been with me for a while, and I appreciate you so much, you just don't know how much it warms my heart to see your support of this channel and your feedback on some of my videos. Listen, you already know what I'm about to say. They never talk about the numbers. They never talk about the economics. They never analyze the data that is based in empirical data. And this is why I am here making the video, part 3, titled, You Can't Do Me Wrong for Your Rights. So the first thing that comes to my mind on this topic is actuarial science. So let's dive into what that is for a moment. And for the sake of fairness, I am going to read directly from the website for Morgan State University's Actuarial Science program. Now, this is their program, which leads to a 4-year bachelor's degree in actuarial science. And this is what they are saying actuarial science is. So, let's go. The question is, what is actuarial science? And then it explains. Actuarial science is a discipline that applies mathematical and statistical methods to the systemic observation of natural events to assess the risk of events occurring and help formulate policies that minimize this risk and its financial impact on companies and clients. And I will explain what that means Angie style in a little bit, okay? So it says most actuaries apply their science to real-life problems. What impact will the government's choice to bail out large banks have on the economy? What impact will a tax increase have on the price of gasoline at the pump? What is the likelihood of New Orleans being devastated by another hurricane? And would the estimated losses be the same, less, or more? What is the likeliness of illness or death if certain cancer-causing compounds are present in certain foods, and the financial ramifications to the company and the nation? What are the risks and security issues a local company faces in the decision to fully automate all processes and systems? Will it be possible to sustain the Social Security program as the population of the United States ages? Finding questions to these problems depends on mathematical models with various financial and economic applications and problem-solving methodologies, which make up the actuarial science discipline. This discipline incorporates mathematics and financial theory to determine the financial effect of uncertain future events. It includes a set of mathematical tools that aid in decision-making in the presence of uncertainties. Actuarial science is truly an interdisciplinary field. It uniquely incorporates the disciplines of mathematics, finance, accounting, and economics, to help individuals understand not only mathematical techniques, distributions, probabilities, and other quantitative tools, but also the underlying business concepts and applications to the real world. This enables actuaries to successfully identify, measure, and mitigate risk. And then it goes on to say, for more information about the field, please visit https, /www.beanactuary.org. And I did put a disclaimer showing that I am not affiliated with either one of these organizations. I'm just giving my opinions. I don't know them and they don't know me. So as I said, I'm going to break it down Angie style. What did I just read? So in plain words, actuarial science is what is used to determine expenses versus risk. Some of you already have experience with it without knowing what to call it. For instance, how much of a risk is it to be involved with a dusty versus either staying single or getting into a relationship with a person who is not a dusty and who is also from a different demographic? What is the economic impact on your personal finances and your lifestyle of that decision? Think about it. Who is most likely, for instance, to leave women as single mothers? Who, for instance, is most likely to marry the woman that he impregnates? You see, think about it. Now imagine, and some of you don't have to imagine, if you have a young female relative who is entering young, womanhood, She could be your daughter, a niece, a female cousin, whatnot, whoever. And she just introduced you to a man with gold teeth in his mouth and with his pants falling, sagging off of his hips as the man of her life right now. How secure would you feel about their future together? How secure would you feel if your 18-year-old daughter brought home a man with snow white hair on his head and sprigs of gray hair growing out of his beard, smelling like liver failure? How about if your daughter decided to just remain single and focus on her career? How secure would you feel about her choice at that moment? Or if she later on, after career is established, if she chooses to, decides to get with a gentleman who is highly accomplished and from a good background, serious about having an intact family, how secure would you feel about her at that point in time? Her choices and her decisions. And the same similar complementary thing can be said for those who have sons, okay? So you have a natural affinity for actuarial science without realizing it. However, from a business standpoint, actuarial science determines, for instance, how much to charge for insurance premiums. A simple way to look at it is that people who live near water, for instance, are at an increased risk of having to deal with flooding versus those who do not live close to the water. So, for instance, is it fair to charge people who live in the desert the exact same rate of insurance as people who live near the ocean? Actuarial science, through its methodologies, will provide an answer based on empirical data that says no. That's because those who live further away from the water are less likely to have to deal with a flood, and they're less likely to file an insurance claim versus those who do live near the water. And those who live further inland, should not be penalized due to the fact that those who live near the water may file more claims. So this is why the people who live near the coastal areas may be charged a higher rate of insurance due to the fact that they have a higher chance of filing a claim, and they may even also have to get additional flood insurance policies. They may have to get a separate policy altogether because they are so inclined to flood in this area that the insurance writers won't even cover, flood. So another example also where you can see actuarial science at work with regards to insurance is when people drive. A 16-year-old who just finished their driving test a moment ago and just got their license handed to them, is still warm from going through the machine, okay? They possess a higher risk of being involved in an accident or even causing an accident while driving than someone who's 40 years old or older. So naturally, the insurance rates for the 16-year-old teen is going to be astronomically high when compared with the insurance rates of the 40-year-old who's been driving for decades. And on another note, on a side note, this is why insurance companies have been recently pulling out of California and Florida, because not only have there been an increase in the number of claims, homeowners insurance claims, the factors that are leading up to the filing of claims continue to increase due to the impact of greenhouse gases, global warming, climate change. They call the same problem a different name each new decade. And straight up, I noticed that Geico has been advertising to senior citizens lately. That's good, but you see, for many of us, Geico feels like an insurance policy for the very young people that are, 18, 19, 20 years old, because it's cheap. Well, at least it used to be. However, young people are not as upwardly mobile as the generations past. So the money has to come from somewhere, but I digress. So now, generally speaking, biological women, those of us with two X chromosomes, whether we were born with a uterus or not, we still have those two X chromosomes, right? So biological women have consistently proven ourselves to be less risk prone than biological men when it comes to the factors that will cause an insurance company to have to pay a claim. And as a result, we tend to cost less to insure when compared to our male counterparts. We women are not the majority of people who are skydiving. We're not popping willies on motorcycles, speed racing on the highways. So, for instance, our car insurance rates tend to be cheaper, as well as our life insurance rates. As a matter of fact, when men, especially young men, get married to one of us women, those of us women with two X chromosomes, their car insurance rates drop because of the marriage. See, let me break it down to you all. What I suspect has been happening is that when two biological males are in a serious relationship and it's time to get insurance amongst other things, they are getting hit with these high rates, which is why I feel that now all of a sudden at least one of them wants to put on a skirt, throw on a wig, even with their beard still attached, okay? And all of a sudden now they are a biological woman because they feel like it. They're the exact same thing as me and any other woman with two X chromosomes. Because you see, I've been around for a while. Let me tell you something. I've been around for a while. It's not too many people out here quite like me. Yes, heterosexual, but I had relatives and still have relatives that are a part of the rainbow community. And they were a part of the rainbow community back in the day when a lot of people were still in the closet. My relatives were out of the closet, those who were in the rainbow community. And let me tell you something. Old school trans women were not pretending to be something that they were not. They, the old school trans women, they were just advocating for their human rights, which I absolutely believe they should have the opportunity to pursue the quiet enjoyment of their life, no different than the rest of us. The new school trans women, I suspect, got other stuff going on with them. But when they saw that waves were being made for trans people, the old school ones, they were going for things like fairness and human rights. It's the new school ones. They jumped on the old school trans woman's bandwagon to try to steer it in their own direction. They're the ones with the beards, the hair on their legs and arms, with wigs misapplied on their head, in their deepest voice, with their Adam's apple going, talking about, I'm a woman. Not trans woman, but a woman. RuPaul would never, nor would Big Frida. At least they respect the essence of who we biological women are enough to present themselves well when they're in costume. And even with the trans men. But at least they respect the essence of manhood enough to do their best to approximate a biological male. Like I said, I have relatives in the rainbow community who were out of the closet back when you could lose your job, lose your house, be excommunicated from your place of worship simply for being a part of the rainbow community. And your girl here has always kept a side gig as a hair braider, and I have a few beauticians in my family as well. So that also meant that I spent time in proximity to trans women back when they were simply seen as drag queens and cross-dressers. So I know the difference between the genuine ones who just wanted to be respected, as opposed to these new school ones who are Leah Thompson today and William Thompson tomorrow. Anything for the money, I suppose. Back to what I was saying earlier. We women are cheaper to insure. We're less risky. And we generally live longer and healthier lives than men because we go to the doctor. We get checked up. So the insurance company does not have to worry about paying a claim for the average woman anytime soon. We're not the ones who are base jumping off of cliffs. We are generally not the ones who indulge as heavily in drug usage and the overconsumption of alcohol, tobacco products, as well as risky sexual encounters.
Tonight, the Blacksburg community is looking for answers after the arrest of a Virginia Tech football player for second-degree murder.
Police say they found the 40-year-old victim dead following a welfare check.
10 News reporter Shane Dwyer is in Blacksburg tonight with what we know so far.
Police say it was a murder here on Main Street in the sleepy town of Blacksburg. Virginia Tech is currently out on summer break, but the students who are here and the campus community say there are still too many questions left unanswered for them to even know what to think. 18-year-old Isemimen Itute moved to Blacksburg to enroll at Virginia Tech in January, and now 6 months later is in jail, charged with second-degree murder. Blacksburg police got involved after responding to a welfare check at the apartments above this convenience store on Main Street, determining a homicide had occurred. Police say Itute was an acquaintance of the victim, 40-year-old Jerry Smith. Smith, seen here in prior interviews with 10 News, worked at various restaurants in the region, including at Food Fanatics in Roanoke and another startup. He had worked at the Black Hen in Blacksburg and had been let go in the last few months, according to the owner. The restaurant is located just a few steps from where police discovered his body. Smith is native to the area, while Itute is from Virginia Beach, where he was a standout football player. While on the Hokies football roster, he had not yet played in a game and has since been suspended from both the team and school. It's unclear what led to the crime or how Smith died. Police say it's a complex, ongoing investigation and are not releasing any other details. Itute is being held in jail without bond this evening. He's due in court tomorrow morning for an arraignment. In Blacksburg, Shane Dwyer, 10 News, working for you.
Another big story today. A Virginia Tech football player accused of murdering a 40-year-old Blacksburg man will walk free until his next court hearing this fall. Today we learned new details about this case during a bond hearing, and 10 News reporter Lindsay Kennett is on that story. She joins us live with what happened. Lindsay?
Isemimen Itute's lawyer tells me he will be released from jail today. Initially, prosecutors filed an appeal, but they reached an agreement after the hearing. In court, prosecutors also said that Itute and Smith had agreed to meet for a second sexual encounter in May, but that's when Itute discovered that Smith had been posing as a woman.
Family and friends of 18-year-old Isemimen Itute embraced after a court hearing Wednesday. A Montgomery County judge granted the teen bail while he waits for his next day in court. Defense attorney Jimmy Turk, fighting back tears during his arguments in the hearing, told 10 News afterwards he thinks it was the right decision.
There was no evidence at all that Isi would have posed any threat to anybody.
Itute's family and about a dozen classmates, plus Smith's family and friends, also in the courtroom. During the hearing, prosecutors argued against Itute's release, describing what happened the night of the alleged murder. Prosecutors say Itute told police he matched with someone called Angie on Tinder on April 10th. The two met up and Angie performed a sexual act on Itute. Prosecutors then say on May 31st, the two met at Angie's apartment. And that's when Itute discovered Angie was not a woman, but the victim, 40-year-old Jerry Smith. Prosecutors say Itute told police he punched Smith in the head multiple times before Smith fell to the ground, and then punched him more and stomped on his head. Prosecutors said all of the bones in Smith's face were broken and he was missing teeth. Despite hearing a bubbling and gurgling noise, prosecutors say Itute left the apartment and did not call 911. Outside court, Turk said what happened to Smith is not acceptable.
It's very tragic.
But added Itute believed Angie was a woman during their first alleged encounter.
It's certainly a lot more than somebody walking into an apartment and potentially taking someone's life or being responsible for that.
He says this sheds light on the dangers of modern technology.
Nobody likes to be told that I'm somebody, but that's not who you really are.
Itute's preliminary hearing is set for September 23rd. Per the court order, he must live with his parents in Virginia Beach and stay at home. He'll be monitored by GPS, and he's not allowed back in Montgomery County unless it's for a court appearance or to meet with his attorney. And he's also not allowed to contact the victim's family. Reporting live in Montgomery County, I'm Lindsay Kennett, 10 News, working for you.
We have an update in the murder trial for Virginia Beach native Isemimen Itute. After deliberating for 3 hours, a jury found the former Virginia Tech football player not guilty. 19-year-old Itute was accused of beating 40-year-old Jerry Smith to death in Blacksburg 1 year ago. Prosecutors say Atute met Smith after the pair matched on the dating app Tinder. They say Atute thought he was meeting a woman. On the stand, Atute claimed he acted in self-defense. He says he thought Smith was reaching for a gun.
You see, we biological women are not going to meet someone and that very first night typically and then start bumping uglies with them without doing any inspections, getting to know some of his people, getting to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody about him. That's just not how we move. Most women are not giving away BJs, the mouth to eggplant resuscitation BJ, on the first encounter. That's not how we roll. See, this guy was fortunate that he is currently not spending time in prison right now. What happened in this case, from what I can remember back when the story broke a while back, was that the football player went on a date with someone whom he thought was a woman, right? Then they got back to the woman, in quotes, room, and the transgender gave him a blow, BJ, mouth to eggplant resuscitation job. So after the BJ, the trans woman afterwards revealed that he was born with XY chromosomes. And it was at that point the 18-year-old football player reacted violently on this 40-year-old male, beating him unconscious, and this 40-year-old male later passed away. By that time, when the story first broke some time back, they were doing away with what is called the Trans Panic Defense Law. And let me read it from Wikipedia real quick. The Trans Panic Defense is a closely related legal strategy applied in cases of assault or unalivement of a transgender individual with whom the assailant had either engaged in or was close to engaging in sexual relations with, and the assailant claimed to be unaware that the victim was transgender, producing in the attacker an alleged trans panic reaction, which is Wikipedia is saying is often a manifestation of transphobia. In most cases, the violence or unalivement is perpetuated by a heterosexual man to an androphilic, that just basically means that someone who loves men. So androphilic trans woman, or basically trans women who are into masculine presenting men. You will also hear it being called the gay and trans panic defense, or the LGBTQ plus panic defense. You see, no biological heterosexual man has ever become violent on a date with a biological and heterosexual woman for the sole reason because he discovered that she was a biological woman with 2 X chromosomes and a vajayjay. Now, plenty of instances where men have become violent with biological women for other reasons, but expecting us to be anything other than a biological woman is not one of them. Our behavior as biological women consistently shows that we tend to slow the encounter down, whereas men, on the other hand, by comparison, are more likely to blindly indulge into a one-night stand and unprotected. With all of the diseases out there, and those that are being added, like, monkeypox, and on top of it, all of the unhinged dusties who are masquerading as so-called nice guys, only for you to get them behind closed doors, and that's when they take their mask off so that they can find the quickest scheme or scam to get you into the bed. Nope. Biological women typically don't move so fast, especially with someone we have just met. When you're dealing with a biological woman, chances are you're not going to know where she lives the first date or 2 in this day and age. Moving too fast, and especially without protection, is an immature male patterned behavior. And on top of it, we biological women tend to go to the doctor more often, and we eat our vegetables. We also go to the doctor when symptoms are mild compared to men as a collective who are nearly flatlining before they accept the fact that they need to go and see a doctor. So fair is fair. Insuring women is cheaper than insuring men across the board. Women are not going out and having breeding parties. And if you're at work or if you're in a place where you can't look up something that can be not safe for work, don't look up breeding party until you're at a place where it's safe for work to do so. Okay? But I'm telling you, women are not the ones having the breeding parties. And I'll verbally tell you, give you some insight. What it is, it's a party where men of the rainbow get together and they have, tops, the ones that give it, and they have bottoms, the ones that are receiving it. So they may have one or two or multiple bottoms bent over, where a bunch of tops go in one after the other, after the other, after the other, and they keep pumping and dumping one after the other. So picture this scenario. They can have 10 men in the room. One is a bottom, 9 are tops. Okay, I'm just trying to help you to see a picture. So the one bottom will be bent over, hands on his knees or in a swing or something like that. Meanwhile, the 9 men will be lined up, each waiting a turn. So man number 1 goes, he pumps and he dumps. Then after that, man number 2 goes, he pumps and he dumps. Man number 3 may try to wipe it off a little bit first before he pumps and dumps. And it will continue to go on like that until man number 9 and 10 are done. That's a breeding party. That's what they call it in quotes. And when I describe this, listen, people are free to live their lives however they want to. That's fine. That's a rainbow thing. That's a gay thing in some communities of gay. I know not every gay person is exactly alike. There are some who kind of want to have like the monogamous relationship type situation set up. But over in those parts, breeding parties happen. Okay? So it's okay when they are out of the closet and they're minding their business and doing what they want. I'm not here to shame people for what they do. The only reason why I'm bringing this fact up is because we do have a segment of rainbow men who are on the DL. And so, see, they may be a bottom or a top at a breeding party, one day and asking a heterosexual woman out on a date a day or two later after they've participated with that and have had multiple partners. So I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you can be aware. I'm not encouraging you to go and look it up, but I know that a lot of you will, and I'm forewarning you, it's not something that you want to look at when you're in an environment that is, workplace oriented or around children or anything like that. Okay? So moving along, let me go back to what I was saying earlier, that women are cheaper to insure than men by comparison for a variety of reasons, including risk to physical health via occupation, via lifestyle choices, and so forth. So the actuarial science uses empirical data to prove this. And here's some more proof about what I'm saying, which can be found at committees.parliament.uk/written evidence and some numbers, which I'm going to read a portion of this PDF, and rest assured that the link will be included in the description box of this video if you want to look it up on your own. So it is titled Evidence and Data on Trans Women's Offending Rates, submitted by Professor Rosa Friedman, Professor Kathleen Stock, and Professor Alice Sullivan. So it says this evidence, which they're basically saying that this is not an opinion or a feeling. It says this evidence. is submitted to the WEC as requested of Professor Rosa Friedman by Nicola Richards, MP, during the 9th December oral evidence session. The submission is divided into the following categories. So it says Section 1, a summary of the Swedish study referred to in the session and a response to some attempt to rebut that study. And then number 2, data from the Ministry of Justice. And 3, analysis, and here a keyword is analysis, of that data from a May 2020 academic paper on transgender prisoners in England and Wales. The keyword is transgender because it does not differentiate between trans woman or trans man just yet. So let's continue. Now we're at the part about Section 1, the Swedish study. And it has the people who were involved in the study listed here: Cecilia DeGene, Paul Lichtenstein, Marcus Bowman, Anna L.V. Johansson, Nicholas Langstrom, Michael Landon. And this was done in 2011, and it's titled The Long-Term Follow-Up of Trans SCXual Persons Undergoing SCX Reassignment Surgery, Cohort Study in Sweden. And so it also has a website, journals, PL, all of that can be found in the PDF, which a link to the PDF will be in the description box of this video. So it says summary of findings. This Swedish cohort study by forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, et al. 2011, followed a population of individuals who had undergone surgical and legal SEX reassignment involving hormonal and surgical treatment between 1973 and 2003, 324 individuals in total, and compared them to a match control group of their birth SEX. It is crucial to emphasize that the study looks only at individuals, those who have undergone hormonal and surgical transition, which is a much tighter group than individuals who self-identify as transgender. So in other words, what they're saying is that they made sure to study the ones that have went so far as to change their physiology, either through hormones or through surgery, not just the ones who, threw on different clothes and went by different names. And today they're a woman, tomorrow they're a guy, the next day they don't know what, they're non-binary, whatever. And then next week, same cycle again. So they made sure that they were studying people who were committed to being transgender, either hormonally or through surgery. So it says the primary purpose of the study was to consider whether medical transition helps patients lead to better social and health outcomes, and to inform what support they might need post-transition. So let me continue. It is methodologically robust, peer-reviewed, large-scale comparative source on offending rates comparing trans women and women, and by that they mean biological women. It compared the likelihood of a person having one or more criminal convictions and convictions for violent crime, defined as unalivement and attempted unalivement, aggravated assault and assault, robbery, threatening behavior, harassment, arson, or any other sexual offense. That's what they're looking at as far as violent crimes. It says the study can be divided into two cohorts, 1973 to 1988 and 1989 to 2003, with the difference being that the latter cohort received adequate mental health provision. The findings show that transsexual individuals were more likely to be criminal than non-transsexuals of the same birth SEX in the first cohort, the 1973 to 1988 one, and no different from their birth SCX in the second group, 1989 to 2003. The researchers, and I want to make sure you understand, they're talking about researchers, not vloggers, bloggers, podcasters, but researchers, state that, in quotes, male to females retained a male pattern regarding criminality. The same was true regarding violent crime. Male to female transitioners were over 6 times more likely to be convicted of an offense than female comparators and 18 times more likely to be convicted of a violent offense. The group had no statistically significant differences from other natal males. By natal, that means there was no difference between the male to female trans woman, male to female transgender, that's a trans woman. No difference between them and natal males, or men who present themselves as men and they were born boys. There's no difference. And so there's no difference for convictions in general or for violent offended. And they emphasized it here again, that the group examined were those who committed to surgery and so were more tightly defined than a population based solely on self-declaration. Or in other words, the group they studied had it chopped off. They were not only just dressing up as women, they had the surgery, okay? So they want to make sure that you know who exactly this is based on. Let's continue. It says, written evidence submitted by Professor Rosa Friedman, Professor Kathleen Stock, and Professor Alice Sullivan. Then it got some parentheses where it says GRA 2021, and it says the study provides strong evidence that policymakers cannot safely assume. And then it goes into letters. Letter A, that trans women's offending patterns, meaning when they commit crimes, their patterns, how they behave, including violent offending, will be significantly different than those of the general male population. In other words, what they're saying is that policymakers cannot see a trans woman and think, oh, you know, he's wearing a skirt and a wig and some makeup, so he's going to be different in his behavior from regular men who present themselves as masculine. And when I say regular, I'm just talking about average when I say that. No disrespect intended. Okay? And it says the study provides strong evidence that policymakers cannot safely assume, letter B, that they will be similar to those of the general female population. So let me break it down to you, Angie style. What the professors, 3 of them, are saying in this paper, based on the research, is that if you are a policymaker and you need to create a law to support these people regarding certain things, this is what you need to be aware of. Just because you're seeing them with effeminate behaviors or presenting themselves in an effeminate manner, that they are fundamentally no different than a man who's walking around in a shirt and some pants and presenting himself in a masculine way. And what I also like about this is that they've gone so far as to address any naysaying on their study. So they asked the question, has it been discredited? In other words, has this study been discredited? And the response was that some online discussion of this piece describes its findings on offending as discredited. Oh my goodness, OMG about that. You see, this is where the naysayers get caught up. They think that because they do not like the outcome of the research, that their dislike of the outcome means that the research is wrong. That's like someone who eats too much and does not exercise, disliking gaining weight. They're disliking the outcome, and they're looking at the scale when they see the pounds coming on and saying, no, scale, you're wrong. You see, not liking the results, having a dislike at what you're seeing, does not mean that the results are wrong. So let me continue. And it goes 1. Policy analyst Murray Blackburn McKenzie conducted a search of the academic literature. And it says, and we are unable to find any academic rebuttal of these specific findings or any equivalent study which shows the opposite effect to Dejenes et al.'s result. So the debunking, in quotes, of the study appears to be based solely on brief statements made by the lead author in an interview some years later about how the data had been interpreted. So y'all, here's what they're saying in other words. Let me break it down to you, Angie style, about this rebuttal, this so-called rebuttal. What they are saying plainly is, hey, we 3 professors, we did a study on this issue, and we took 1 + 1 and we got 2. We also did a study and we put 2 and 2 together and we got 4. So, if I got 1 chopstick and another 1 chopstick, I got 2 chopsticks, right? If I got $2 and I put it together with another $2, then I got $4. And it worked on other stuff too. No matter what, 1 + 1 gave us 2 and 2 + 2 gave us 4. Okay, so I'm breaking it down to you what the professors are saying. Look, every time we turn around, 1 and 1 is 2 and 2 and 2 is 4. But we professors here are looking at the naysayers who claim to, they've claimed to debunk what we got. They're debunking that the 1 + 1 = 2 and the 2 + 2 = 4. But the naysayers ain't showed us yet how 1 + 1 don't equal 2 and how 2 + 2 don't equal 4. They just said it was wrong and that was it. See, that's what the 3 professors are saying. And on top of it, outside of the naysayers, ain't nobody on the academic side of things have disagreed with us 3 professors yet and came up with their own proof either. You understand? So this is what these professional academics are politely saying about the naysayers and their so-called debunking. Okay, so now that you have that understanding, let me go back to the document and continue. So now we see the number 2, which basically means it is the second item in the segment of the document, and that is to provide an analysis of these claims. In other words, it was not enough for the researchers to give their opinions or feelings or thoughts on their naysayers. They had to take what the naysayers said and prove whether or not the naysayers were speaking facts. And you see this number 3 here is basically the researchers telling the UK Parliament there is also key data contained in Appendix 2 of that document, which we have attached to the submission, meaning we got you. We provided all the evidence on what the naysayers had to say. So down here it says, author quote is basically the researchers saying, here's what the naysayer said out of his mouth. Not his mouth, but his mouth. M-O-U-F with a F at the end. As if his mouth is raggedy. But they did it professionally, y'all. And here goes the quote again. It says, quote, the individual in the image, in other words, that low down, no good, dirty, rotten creature, aka the naysayer. The individual in the image who is making claims about trans criminality, specifically R-word likelihood, is misrepresenting the study findings. That's what the professors are saying about the naysayer. The findings do not include specific results for any form of sexual assault. Therefore, it is true that claims specifically about RAPE rather than violent crime in general cannot be made. So the three professors had to put the naysayer in their place, professionally and academically. And so this study is several pages long, and I read what I felt were the main parts that are kind of like give you a feel of what's going on here. And like I said, the link is in the description box. Okay, moving along. So considering that trans women are biological males, by that I mean they have XY chromosomes, they have an A-shaped pelvis, they have longer arms and longer legs and bigger feet, bigger hands. Their skull shape is different. Their jaw shape is different. Trans women are biological males. Less than 30% of them go through with the gender-affirming surgeries, and many of them continue to show male-patterned behavior. The issue is that their unaltered behavior, according to the research, means that whatever incidents they are involved in will be counted within the demographic for biological women and skewing the numbers for us and potentially leading to an increase in insurance premium payments for us as far as life insurance, as far as vehicular insurance, and any other types of insurance that we pay. Considering that biological women are already grappling with the gender pay gap and the pink tax, we have high representation as victims on the receiving end of many crimes. And we give up millions of dollars per woman in uncompensated labor over our lifetimes. An artificial increase to medical, health, vision, drivers, home, and life insurance is too much. The pink tax is too much because we're paying to exist, especially in places where we are taxed for our menstrual hygiene products. We cannot take on the liabilities that are inherent within another demographic when we're already being paid less on average than said demographic. And there are other factors. Using vision as an example, biological women can be required to take tests that would normally not affect us in high numbers, such as color blindness. Yes, there are girls and women who are colorblind, but it's very, 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 very rare when compared to boys and men who are colorblind. Or our insurance premiums can be jacked up so that there are enough resources to provide services to another demographic for services that we may never need. For instance, getting our prostates checked. Biological women do not have prostates, but believe it or not, biological men do have some breast tissue. So in all fairness, as I've said it before, biological males, especially who are trans, need to create their own avenues so they too can be seen in a proper light. So in all fairness, as I've said it in previous videos, biological males who are in the sexual minority, especially those who are trans, need to create their own avenues so they too can be seen within the proper light. Perhaps trans women are less riskier than other biological males and can enjoy their own discounts as a result. But you see, that is going to take some time to be analyzed through actuarial science to make that determination, which is all the more the reason why trans women need to create their own avenues, their own spaces, their own safe zones, so on and so forth. And I just focus more on the economic side of it while touching a bit on the criminal side of things. However, throwing biological men's statistics into the biological women's category has disastrous potential for women's medical needs. Also, how women are regarded in the criminal justice system, like for the women who go to prison, for instance. A trans woman can claim that they feel as if they're having a period. And that they need feminine hygiene products, which will end up taking supplies away from biological women who actually have periods. And that can cause the expenses of those products being purchased to go up, which who may ultimately pay for it eventually? Taxpayers. Just using that as an example. It can also make us biological women appear more violent than we actually are if they start pouring into our category. So the trans women need their own spaces, their own metrics, their own categories, their own avenues, their own safe spaces. It's not fair for me, for instance, to claim that I have some type of a handicap in order to make it easier for me to access benefits. Nor is it fair for a biological man to claim to be the same as a biological woman when he has XY chromosomes. However, having a negative impact on biological women when we already have our own battles is simply not the way to go. So that's all I have to say for now. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. Take care until next time.